My husband demanded I apologize to his female best friend because my honesty hurt. Her feelings when I refused, he shouted in anger. Apologize, or I'll divorce you. I agreed. I went to her house, looked her in the eye, and in front of her husband I said something that made them both understand why women like me never bow for truth. Apologize to Scarlett, or I'll divorce you. My husband Mason stood in our living room with his arms crossed, delivering that ultimatum like he was negotiable. Appreciating a business deal instead of threatening to end our 5-year marriage. His face was set in that expression I'd come to know too well over the past months. The one that said I was being unreasonable, jealous, impossible to deal with. The one that made me question my own sanity, even when I knew I was right. Before we continue, I want to thank you for joining me and sharing stories about truth and standing up for yourself. If you believe that honesty matters more than keeping peace at any cost, please consider subscribing. It's free and helps us reach more people. Now let's see how this unfolds. I stared at him, this man I'd promised to love and cherish, and realized I didn't recognize him anymore. Or maybe I'd never really known him at all. Because the Mason I thought I married wouldn't demand I apologize to his female best friend for the crime of noticing their inappropriate relationship. The Mason I thought I married wouldn't gaslight me into thinking I was the problem when his emotional affair with Scarlett Piers had been happening right under my nose for years. You want me to apologize to her? I heard my own voice calmer than I felt inside. For what exactly? For treating her with suspicion and coldness since the day you met her. For making her feel unwelcome in our lives. For being so jealous that you can't accept I have a meaningful friendship outside our marriage. Mason's voice rose with each accusation. Like he was the victim here. Scarlett's been nothing but kind to you, and you've hurt her feelings with your constant attitude. She deserves an apology, and if you can't give her that, then I don't know if I can stay in this marriage. Something shifted inside me in that moment. Not heartbreak exactly, though, that would come later. What I felt was clarity, cold and sharp as a blade. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the beginning, to when I still believed in the life Mason and I were building together. I'm Aria Montgomery. And for 5 years, I genuinely thought I had a solid marriage. We met at a summer barbecue thrown by mutual friends on one of those perfect July afternoons where everything felt possible. Mason was standing by the drink cooler when I walked up and he looked at me, with this genuine smile that made me forget I was supposed to play it cool. We talked for 3 hours straight that day, sitting on the back porch steps while the party continued around us. He listened when I talked about my work as a graphic designer. He asked thoughtful questions about my creative process. He told me about managing operations at a mid-sized logistics company with real enthusiasm, not the fake interest some men use as a placeholder until they can talk about themselves again. What got me was how he paid attention to details. On our first real date, he remembered I took my coffee with just a splash of cream and no sugar. He surprised me with bookstore dates because I'd mentioned loving the smell of new books and the quiet atmosphere. He made me feel seen in ways I hadn't experienced before, like he was actually interested in who I was, rather than who he wanted me to be. Our wedding came 2 years later. We kept it small and meaningful, held in a garden venue with string lights, wrapped around old oak trees and wildflowers, and mason jars on every table. We invited only close family and friends, the kind of intimate ceremony where you actually recognize everyone there and can have real conversations instead of working a receiving line. Mason's vows that day were simple and sincere. He promised to be my partner, my best friend, my safe place, and I believed him completely. I had no reason not to. The first 3 years were good. Really good. We fell into an easy rhythm of morning coffee together before work, weekend farmers market trips where we'd debate which vegetables to try, lazy Sunday afternoons where we'd read in comfortable silence, him with his management books and me with my design magazines. We talked about everything, our days, our dreams, our frustrations at work. He told me about difficult conversations with his boss. I vented about clients who wanted champagne designs on beer budgets. We were building something real, or so I thought. Scarlett entered the picture about 2 years into our marriage. Mason came home one evening with that energized look he got when something at work had gone particularly well. We hired someone new for the operations team, he said, setting his briefcase down and loosening his tie. She's brilliant. 10 years of experience at a Fortune 500, and she chose to come work with us. That's great, I said, genuinely happy for him. He'd been understaffed for months. What's her name? Scarlett Piers. She starts Monday. I went back to chopping vegetables for dinner, didn't think anything of it. But Monday evening, when I asked about his day, Mason talked about Scarlett for 20 minutes straight. How she'd reorganized their filing system in one afternoon. How she'd spotted an inefficiency in their shipping process that could save thousands annually. How she had this way of reading people that made negotiations easier. How she'd made everyone laugh during the staff meeting. Sounds like you found a winner, I said, trying to match his enthusiasm even as something small and uncomfortable stirred in my chest. We really did, Mason agreed, his eyes bright. I think she's going to change everything about how we operate. He wasn't wrong about that. She did change everything, just not in the way he meant. Over the next few weeks, Scarlett became a regular feature in our dinner conversations. Scarlett had an idea for streamlining their inventory management. Scarlett made a joke that had the whole office in stitches. Scarlett recommended a podcast about operational efficiency that Mason thought I should listen to. You two would really get along, he said one night. She's creative like you, has an eye for design. She actually helped us redesign our client presentation template. Maybe we should have her over for dinner sometime, I suggested, wanting to put a face to this name that kept appearing in my marriage. That's a great idea, Mason said immediately. I'll ask her tomorrow. The dinner happened the following Saturday. I spent the afternoon preparing. Made my grandmother's lasagna recipe, the one that never failed. Set the table with our good dishes. Put together a simple salad with homemade vinaigrette. Even bought wine after asking Mason what Scarlett preferred. She likes red, he'd said. Pinot Noir if possible. Of course he knew her wine preference. When the doorbell rang at 7, I wiped my hands on my apron and followed Mason to the door. Scarlett was stunning. That was my first thought. Tall and willowy with auburn hair that fell in perfect waves, the kind women pay hundreds for at salons. She wore a cream-colored silk blouse and dark jeans that probably cost more than my entire outfit, with delicate gold jewelry that looked expensive but understated. You must be Arya, she said, extending a manicured hand. Mason talks about you constantly. It's wonderful to finally meet you. Her handshake was firm and confident. Her smile showed perfect white teeth. Her perfume was subtle and sophisticated. I disliked her immediately, and I hated myself for it. Come in, I said, forcing warmth into my voice. Dinner's almost ready. The evening started pleasantly enough. Scarlett complimented our home, specifically noticing details like the throw pillows I designed myself and the gallery wall of framed photos from our travels. You have a wonderful eye, she said, studying my work. Mason mentioned you're a graphic designer. Have you thought about interior design? You clearly have the talent. I like what I do, I said simply. We sat down to eat, and that's when I started really noticing things. The way Scarlett laughed at Mason's jokes, throwing her head back like he was the funniest person alive. The way she touched his arm when making a point, just a light brush of her fingers that lingered a second too long. The way she and Mason had inside jokes from work, finishing each other's sentences about people and situations I knew nothing about. Remember when Jenkins brought his dog to the meeting, Scarlett said, and she and Mason dissolved into laughter. His dog, I asked, trying to join the conversation. Oh, it was hilarious, Mason said, still chuckling. Tell her, Scarlett. And she did, launching into a story that was moderately amusing but not nearly as funny as their reaction suggested. But they kept looking at each other, sharing these knowing glances like they had this whole world together that I wasn't part of. You two seem to work really well together, I observed, keeping my tone neutral. We do, Scarlett agreed, looking at Mason with genuine warmth. He's the best boss I've ever had. So supportive, so understanding, and he actually listens to new ideas instead of just shutting them down. That's one of the things I love about him, I said pointedly. If Scarlett caught the emphasis, she didn't show it. After dinner, Mason insisted on opening another bottle of wine. Come on, let's sit in the living room. The kitchen can wait. I wanted to clean up, wanted the structure and distance of clearing plates, but I followed them instead. Scarlett sat on our couch, tucking her legs under her in a way that made her look comfortable and at home. Mason sat in the armchair across from her, leaning forward, fully engaged as she talked about a book she was reading. It's about organizational psychology, she explained. How the physical environment shapes workplace culture. I think we could apply some of the concepts at the office. You should borrow it, Mason said to me. Might give you some ideas for your clients. Maybe, I said noncommittally. The evening dragged on. By the time Scarlett finally said she should go, it was past 11 and my smile felt painted on. This was wonderful, she said at the door, hugging Mason goodbye before turning to me. Thank you so much for having me, Arya. We should do this again soon. Sure, I said. Mason walked her to her car. I watched from the window as they stood talking for another 10 minutes, Scarlett laughing at something he said, Mason's hands in his pockets, relaxed and happy. When he came back inside, he was still smiling. That went great, he said. I knew you two would hit it off. Scarlett really liked you. Did she? I asked, starting to clear the wine glasses. Of course, she said you were lovely, and she was impressed by your design work. I didn't respond, just carried the glasses to the kitchen. Mason followed me. Everything okay? Fine. You seem quiet. I turned to face him. She's very friendly. She is, that's part of what makes her great at her job. People just naturally like her. You seem to, I said before I could stop myself. Mason's expression shifted, confusion replacing his earlier happiness. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. I'm just tired. But it wasn't nothing, and we both knew it. That dinner was the beginning of a pattern that would define the next 3 years. Scarlett became a fixture in our lives. Not just in our conversations, but in our actual time. Scarlett's having a tough week, Mason would say. I told her we'd grab drinks with her after work Friday. The team is doing a bowling night, he'd announce. It was Scarlett's idea, should be fun. Scarlett mentioned this great brunch place. Want to check it out this weekend? I told her we might meet her there. Every invitation was framed as casual, as normal friendship, and maybe it would have been if it was actually a group thing. But somehow it always ended up being the three of us, or worse, just Mason and Scarlett when I had to work or had other plans. You don't mind if I go without you, right? Mason would ask. I already told Scarlett I'd be there. What was I supposed to say? That yes, I minded. That I didn't want my husband spending his free time with another woman. I tried saying it once carefully. I feel like we don't get much time just the two of us anymore, I said one evening when Mason mentioned another outing involving Scarlett. Maybe we could do something this weekend, just you and me. We have time together every day, Mason said, sounding confused. We live together. That's not the same as quality time. Arya, Scarlett is my friend, my colleague. You can't expect me not to have friendships outside our marriage. I don't. But there's a difference between friendship and what? His voice had an edge now. What are you trying to say? I looked at his defensive posture, his narrowed eyes, and I backed down. Nothing, forget it. But I didn't forget it. I started paying closer attention. I noticed that Scarlett texted Mason constantly, not just work stuff, though she claimed it was, but photos of her lunch with a caption like, "Wish you were here to try this." Memes that referenced their inside jokes. Questions about his opinion on everything from restaurant recommendations to what color she should paint her bedroom. Why is Scarlett asking you about paint colors? I asked one evening, watching him type out a detailed response about warm versus cool undertones. She values my opinion, he said absently, still focused on his phone. She's redecorating her apartment. Doesn't she have other friends she could ask? Or family? Mason looked up then, his expression hardening. Why does it bother you so much that she asks me things? It doesn't bother me, I lied. I'm just wondering why you're so invested in her decorating choices. I'm being a good friend, that's what friends do. He said it like I was the unreasonable one, like I was the problem. And maybe I started believing it. The worst part wasn't even the time Mason spent with Scarlett. It was how he'd started comparing us. Scarlett never complains when I work late, he'd say when I expressed frustration about another missed dinner. Scarlett understands the demands of the job, he'd mention when I asked if he could take a day off for my sister's birthday party. Scarlett thinks it's healthy for couples to have separate interests, he'd point out when I suggested we take a weekend trip, just us. Always Scarlett. Always her opinion, her understanding, her perspective. I tried talking to my friends about it. That's weird, right? I asked my best friend Lauren over coffee. That he's always bringing up what Scarlett thinks about our marriage. Lauren frowned. Have you told him it bothers you? Every time I try, he says I'm being jealous and insecure. Are you sure there's nothing actually going on? I don't know, I admitted. He says they're just friends, and I haven't found any evidence of cheating. No secret texts, no unexplained absences. He always tells me when he's with her. Then maybe you are being a little paranoid, Lauren said gently. I mean, men and women can be friends. And they can. I knew that intellectually. But this didn't feel like friendship. This felt like Mason had replaced me as his primary emotional partner, and Scarlett had slipped into that role so smoothly I'd barely noticed until it was done. Things came to a head at the company holiday party. Mason's firm went all out, booking a nice hotel ballroom, open bar, live band, the works. I wore a black dress I'd splurged on specifically for the occasion, got my hair done, wanted to feel confident and beautiful beside my husband. Mason looked handsome in his suit, and when he first saw me, his eyes lit up the way they used to. You look stunning, he said, and for a moment I felt like we were us again. But the moment we walked into the party, everything changed. Scarlett was there, of course. Wearing a red dress that hugged every curve, her hair swept up elegantly, looking like she'd stepped off a magazine cover. Mason, she called out, waving us over to where she stood with some coworkers. The entire evening I felt invisible. Mason and Scarlett were attached at the hip. They danced together multiple times, while I stood making awkward small talk with people I barely knew. They posed for photos together, his arm around her waist. They disappeared to the bar together, coming back 20 minutes later laughing about something. Having fun? I asked Mason during one of the rare moments Scarlett wasn't monopolizing him. Yeah, great party, he said, distracted, his eyes scanning the room. Looking for her, I realized. When a slow song came on, I expected Mason to ask me to dance. We'd barely spent 10 minutes together all night. Instead, Scarlett appeared at his elbow. They're playing our song, she said with a playful smile. Our song, Mason laughed. We don't have a song, Scarlett. Sure we do, remember, the conference in Denver. The hotel bar played this, and you said it reminded you of your dad. Mason's expression softened. You remember that? Of course I do. He took her hand and led her to the dance floor. I stood there, watching my husband slow dance with another woman, watching her rest her head on his shoulder, watching him hold her like she was something precious. And I knew. Maybe they weren't sleeping together. Maybe they never had. But emotionally, he'd left our marriage months ago. I left the party early, claiming a headache. Mason barely noticed, waving absently as I said goodbye. I cried the whole drive home. That night, when Mason finally came home after 2 in the morning, smelling like alcohol and Scarlett's perfume, I was still awake. We need to talk, I said. He sighed, pulling off his tie. Can it wait? I'm exhausted. No, it can't. Something in my voice made him look at me. What's wrong? You danced with Scarlett tonight, multiple times. So. I danced with lots of people. You slow danced with her, you held her. Arya, we were dancing, not making out. You're making this into something it's not. Am I? I stood up, my voice shaking. Because from where I stood tonight, it looked like you're in a relationship with her, and I'm just the wife you come home to out of obligation. That's ridiculous, is it? When's the last time you talked to me the way you talk to her? When's the last time you listened to me, really listened, the way you hang on her every word? When's the last time you chose me, Mason? His face hardened. I choose you every day by staying in this marriage despite your constant jealousy and negativity. Scarlett is my friend, that's all. If you can't handle me having a female friend, that's your issue, not mine. It's not about her being female, I said, my voice breaking. It's about you being emotionally involved with someone else. It's about you sharing parts of yourself with her that you don't share with me anymore. It's about you prioritizing her feelings over mine constantly. I prioritize my wife, he said coldly, but my wife has become someone I barely recognize. Someone suspicious and paranoid and unpleasant to be around. You used to be fun, Arya. Now you're just angry all the time. The words hit like physical blows. I'm angry because my husband is having an emotional affair, I whispered. I'm not having an affair, Mason shouted. I have never cheated on you. Scarlett is my friend, and she's been there for me when you've been too wrapped up in your own insecurity to notice I need support too. What support? What are you talking about? Work has been hell, he said. We're understaffed, the pressure is insane, and you never ask about it anymore. You just complain that I'm working too much. Scarlett understands what I'm dealing with because she's there. She gets it. You never told me work was that bad, I said, because you don't want to hear it. You just want me to be available whenever you want attention, and when I'm not, you pout and make me feel guilty. I stared at him, this stranger wearing my husband's face. Get out, I said quietly. What? Get out of our bedroom, sleep on the couch. I can't even look at you right now. He left, slamming the door behind him. That was 6 months ago. Since then, things had only gotten worse. Mason started spending even more time with Scarlett, now openly telling me he needed space from my negativity. He'd come home late, sometimes not at all, claiming he crashed at the office or at a buddy's place. But I could smell her perfume on his clothes. I stopped fighting it, stopped arguing, just went numb. My friends told me to leave him. My family said I deserved better. But some part of me still hoped he'd wake up, see what he was doing, choose to fight for us. That hope died 2 weeks ago. I'd stopped by Mason's office to drop off lunch he'd forgotten. His assistant wasn't at her desk, so I walked back to his office. The door was cracked open. Inside, I could see Mason and Scarlett. She was crying, and he was holding her, stroking her hair, murmuring comfort I couldn't quite hear. Then she looked up at him, and he wiped her tears, his touch so gentle, so intimate. They didn't kiss, they didn't have to. The way they looked at each other said everything. I backed away silently and left. That night I told Mason what I'd seen. He exploded. You're spying on me now, coming to my office unannounced. This is exactly the kind of controlling behavior I'm talking about. I brought you lunch, I said tiredly. And I saw my husband comforting another woman the way he used to comfort me. She was upset. Her mother is sick. What was I supposed to do? Ignore her pain? Her mother is sick, I repeated. And she came to you for comfort, not her husband, not her family, you. That's when he told me. Scarlett is getting divorced, he said. Her husband is an asshole who never appreciated her. She's going through hell right now, and yes, I'm supporting her through it because that's what friends do. She's getting divorced, I said slowly. And you didn't think to mention that to me? Because I knew you'd react like this, like it's some kind of threat to you. It is a threat to me, I shouted. Don't you see that? She's getting divorced, Mason. She's about to be single, and you're more emotionally connected to her than to your own wife. That's not my fault, he said. If you'd been more supportive, more understanding, more like Scarlett, I finished bitterly. Yes, he exploded. Yes, more like Scarlett. She doesn't judge me, doesn't make me feel guilty for having a life outside our marriage. She encourages me, believes in me, makes me feel valued. The truth hung between us, finally spoken out loud. Then maybe you should be with her, I said quietly. Maybe I should, he shot back. We stood in silence, both shocked by what had been said. Then Mason's phone buzzed. He looked at it and his expression softened. Scarlett, I knew without asking. I need to go, he said, already heading for the door. She needs me. And I don't, I asked. He paused, hand on the doorknob, but didn't turn around. Not like she does, he said, and he left. He came back 3 hours later to find me still sitting in the same spot. I talked to Scarlett, he said, about everything about us. My heart stopped. She feels terrible, he continued. She had no idea you felt this threatened by our friendship. She wants to apologize to clear the air. I don't want her apology, I said. Well, she deserves yours, Mason said. You've treated her like the enemy when all she's done is be a good friend to me. You've made assumptions, been cold to her, made her feel unwelcome. She deserves an apology for that, Arya. I laughed, a harsh sound with no humor in it. You want me to apologize to the woman you're emotionally cheating with? I'm not, he started, then stopped. This is pointless. You refuse to see reason. You refuse to take responsibility for your behavior. He sat down across from me, his expression hard. Here's what's going to happen, he said. You're going to apologize to Scarlett. You're going to admit you've been unfair to her. And then we're all going to move forward like adults. And if I don't, then I want a divorce, which brings us back to where we started. Standing in our living room, my husband demanding I apologize to his emotional affair partner, threatening to end our marriage if I don't comply. I looked at Mason, really looked at him. At the man who'd promised to be my partner, who'd vowed to forsake all others. And I saw someone who'd already made his choice. He'd chosen her months ago, maybe years ago. I'd just been too afraid to accept it, but I wasn't afraid anymore. I was done. Okay, I said quietly. Mason blinked, surprised. Okay, I'll go apologize to Scarlett. Relief flooded his face. Thank you, I know this is hard, but it's the right thing. I'm not finished, I interrupted. I'll go apologize, but then I'm filing for divorce. The relief vanished. What? Arya, you want me to apologize for noticing your emotional affair. Fine, I'll do it, but I won't stay in a marriage where I'm the third wheel. Where I have to compete with another woman for my own husband's attention. Where I'm made to feel crazy for having boundaries. You're being dramatic, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. No, I'm being honest. Finally. And the truth is, this marriage ended a long time ago. You just didn't have the courage to admit it. I grabbed my purse and keys. Where are you going? To apologize to Scarlett, I said. That's what you wanted, isn't it? I drove to Scarlett's house with my hands steady on the wheel, my mind clearer than it had been in months. She lived in a nice neighborhood, the kind with tree-lined streets and houses that cost more than Mason and I could afford. Her husband's money, I assumed. Soon-to-be ex-husband. I rang the doorbell. Scarlett answered, looking surprised to see me. She was dressed casually in yoga pants and an oversized sweater, her hair in a messy bun, no makeup. Even like this, she looked beautiful. Arya, she said, what are you? Is your husband home? I asked. Derek, yes, but... Good, I need to talk to both of you. I walked past her into the house before she could respond. Derek was in the living room, looking up from his laptop with confusion. He was handsome in a bland way, with thinning hair and a soft middle. The kind of man who made good money but probably worked too much. Who's this? He asked Scarlett. Derek, this is Arya, Mason's wife. Understanding dawned on his face, followed by something harder. Mason's wife, he repeated. Right. I looked between them, seeing the tension, the distance. This marriage was already over, just like mine. I came to apologize, I said, looking directly at Scarlett. She blinked, clearly thrown off balance. Oh, that's not necessary. Mason insisted, I continued. He said I've been unfair to you, that I've treated you with suspicion and coldness, that I've made you feel unwelcome in our lives. Arya, really, you don't have to. So I'm here to apologize, I said, my voice clear and steady. I'm sorry, Scarlett. I'm sorry that I noticed my husband was having an emotional affair with you. I'm sorry that I had the audacity to expect him to maintain appropriate boundaries. I'm sorry that my presence in his life got in the way of your relationship with him. Scarlett's face went white. Derek stood up slowly. Excuse me, I turned to him. You're divorcing her, right? We're separated, he said carefully, working through some issues. Let me guess, she's been distant, emotionally unavailable. Spends all her time texting someone from work, talks about him constantly, compares you to him. Derek's jaw tightened. How did you? Because she's doing the same thing to my marriage that she did to yours. That's not fair, Scarlett said, her voice shaking. Derek and I have problems that have nothing to do with Mason. Maybe, I said, but Mason certainly didn't help, did he? I looked at Derek again. They're not sleeping together, if that's what you're wondering. At least, I don't think they are. But they might as well be, because emotionally, she's already left you for him. And he's already left me for her. This is insane, Scarlett said. Mason and I are friends, that's all. Friends don't slow dance together at company parties while their spouses watch, I said. Friends don't text each other at midnight about nothing. Friends don't make their actual partners feel like intruders in their own relationships. I turned back to Derek. She told Mason she's getting divorced. Did you know that? That she's already planning her exit, already thinking about what comes next. And I'm willing to bet Mason features heavily in those plans. Is that true? Derek asked Scarlett, his voice dangerous. I mentioned we were having problems, Scarlett said defensively. He's been supportive. I'm sure he has, Derek said coldly. Very supportive, apparently. Scarlett turned on me, her composure cracking. You don't know what you're talking about. You're just a jealous, insecure wife who can't handle her husband having female friends. Maybe, I agreed. Or maybe I'm just a woman who recognizes when another woman is circling my marriage like a vulture, waiting for it to die so she can pick it clean. The room went silent. I see you, Scarlett, I continued quietly. I've always seen you, the way you light up when Mason enters a room, the way you find excuses to touch him, to be near him. The way you've slowly inserted yourself into every aspect of his life until there was no room left for me. Scarlett's eyes were bright with tears now. You want to know the truth, she said, her voice breaking. Fine, yes, I have feelings for Mason. I never meant for it to happen, but it did. He's kind and funny and he actually sees me. Unlike Derek, who's been more interested in his career than his wife for years. Derek made a sound like he'd been punched. But I never acted on it, Scarlett continued, looking at me. I never kissed him, never slept with him, never even told him how I felt. You didn't have to, I said. He knows, maybe not consciously, but he knows. And he feels the same way, even if he won't admit it. That's what makes this worse. If you'd had a physical affair, it would almost be simpler. But this slow erosion of our marriage while he tells me I'm imagining things, this is cruelty disguised as friendship. I looked at Derek, who was staring at his wife like he'd never seen her before. I'm sorry this is how you found out, I said to him. You seem like a decent man who didn't deserve this. Then I looked back at Scarlett. I'm filing for divorce. Mason's all yours now. I hope you get everything you wanted, and I hope it's worth the price you both paid. I walked toward the door, then paused and turned back. One more thing, I said. When it falls apart, and it will, because relationships built on the ruins of other relationships always do, don't come looking for sympathy. You'll have earned every bit of heartbreak coming your way. I left them there, Scarlett crying, Derek staring at her with betrayal in his eyes. In my car, I finally let myself feel it. The grief, the anger, the relief. I'd spent 3 years doubting myself, questioning my sanity, wondering if I was the problem. But I wasn't crazy. I'd been right all along. My phone buzzed. A text from Mason. Scarlett called. She's upset. What did you say to her? Not, are you okay? Not, let's talk. His first concern was for her. It told me everything I needed to know. I texted back. I apologized like you asked. My lawyer will contact you next week about the divorce. You can have the house. I don't want anything that reminds me of this marriage. His response came immediately. Arya, wait, let's talk about this. But there was nothing left to talk about. I blocked his number and drove to Lauren's house. She took one look at my face and pulled me inside. I left him, I said. Good, she said fiercely, hugging me tight. It's about damn time. The next few weeks were hard. Mason tried to contact me through friends, through email, even showed up at my work once. Each time his message was the same. I was overreacting. He and Scarlett were just friends. If I just give him another chance, we could work through this. But I was done giving chances. I hired a lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia who'd handled dozens of divorces involving emotional affairs. They always say it was just friendship, she told me during our first meeting. And technically, they might be right, but emotional infidelity is still infidelity. And it's often harder to recover from because the cheating spouse doesn't think they did anything wrong. The divorce was relatively quick since we had no kids, and I wanted nothing from him. Mason tried to fight it at first, but his heart wasn't in it. 3 months after I walked out, the divorce was final. I heard through mutual friends that Mason and Scarlett started dating officially a few weeks later. That was fast, Lauren said when she told me. Not really, I replied. They've been together for years. This just makes it official. I waited to feel devastated, but I didn't. Instead, I felt free. 6 months after the divorce, I ran into Derek at a coffee shop. He looked better than when I'd last seen him, more settled. Arya, he said, approaching my table. Can I join you for a minute? Sure. He sat down, cradling his own coffee. I wanted to thank you, he said. For what you said that day. I'd been in denial about what was happening. Your honesty, as brutal as it was, gave me the clarity I needed. How are you doing? I asked. Better, he said. The divorce was finalized last month, and I'm seeing someone new. A woman who actually wants to be with me, not someone else. I'm glad. What about you? He asked. I'm good, I said and meant it. Really good, actually. I got a promotion at work. I'm traveling more, designing projects I actually care about. I'm remembering who I was before I spent 3 years trying to compete with a ghost. Derek nodded. They're still together, you know. Mason and Scarlett. I heard. Does it bother you? I thought about it. No, they deserve each other and I deserve better. Derek smiled. Yes, you do. A year later, I heard they got engaged. I felt nothing. 2 years later, they got married. Still nothing. 3 years later, I heard through the grapevine that they were having problems. That Scarlett had become suspicious of Mason's new assistant. That he'd been spending a lot of time with her. That Scarlett felt like she was competing for his attention. I almost laughed. Patterns repeat. People who cheat with you will cheat on you. And people who build relationships on the ruins of others shouldn't be surprised when those foundations crack. As for me, I'm 5 years past my divorce now. I'm in a healthy relationship with a man named Julian who thinks I hung the moon, who doesn't have any female best friends he prioritizes over me, who makes me feel seen and valued and chosen every single day. Sometimes he asks about my ex-husband, and I tell him the truth. That I wasted 3 years of my life trying to make someone love me the way I deserved. That I learned the difference between jealousy and intuition. That I discovered my voice is worth more than keeping the peace. And that the day I walked into Scarlett's house and told the truth in front of witnesses was the day I started getting my power back. Women like me don't bow to lies just to keep men comfortable. We speak our truth, even when it costs us everything. Because our dignity is worth more than any marriage built on gaslighting and emotional betrayal. And in the end, that's the apology I gave Scarlett, not the one Mason wanted, but the one she needed to hear, the truth. And the truth, as they say, will set you free.